celebrating 10 years of possibility. Pilot Flying J and Halloran Hilton Hill present Anything is Possible. Today's guest, Amy Crawford.
Welcome to another edition of Anything is Possible, and at the studio tonight as we're taping, it's raining. So you will hear maybe some rain in the background, maybe some thunder, but I hope you will also hear the power of a great story. I love teachers. I think I love teachers because teachers are about possibility. When we created the show Anything is Possible, we wanted to showcase possibility, and teachers are the ones who see us when we're young. They see the potential that we don't see, and they activate it. And Amy Crawford is one of those possibility engineers. I'd like to call you that.
I'll put that on
Amy,
my
welcome.
business card.
Welcome to the broadcast.
Thank you, Halloran. It's good to be here.
I always like to ask teachers why they're teachers. So, why are you a teacher?
You know, Halloran, I really don't feel like I had a choice. I feel like when God created me, even as a little girl, He created me to be a teacher. It just took me a while to figure that out.
What other ideas did you have?
Well, I love to be creative. So, I looked at journalism. I looked at a communication degree, something in advertising. I like to write little jingles and catchy slogans. So I thought, oh, maybe this would be a way to use my talents. And it wasn't until I took my first education class that I knew, this is me, this fits me, this is like a hand in a glove. I need to be a teacher.
So God made you to be a teacher.
I believe He did,
right?
Yes.
But you also have a teaching genealogy. Who else in your family?
Well, my grandmother was a teacher for 39 years in Knox County, and my grandfather was a principal. Their son, my dad, he was a teacher in Morristown. He was a teacher for 18 months, though. So I say that doesn't really count. He doesn't really know what it's like to be a teacher, but he does, and I guess I do have teaching in my blood. So
when teaching is in your blood, I've often thought about how we come to be who we are, right? And how we come to do what we do. You feel called to be a teacher. How does one hear that call? And how did you know that this was, with your vocation, how did the God box get checked?
Wow, what a question.
Yeah.
I would have to say I didn't know right away. It wasn't until after I had been in the classroom for some time. In fact, even years before I knew for sure that this is what God had created me to do. When you go through school and they teach the process of how to be a teacher, they tend to teach the fundamentals. Right. But they don't teach the passion. They don't teach the inspiration. They don't teach that, how do you motivate a child? They talk about the techniques, but they don't talk about the undefinables in the classroom. So it took a few years in the classroom to get those rewards that aren't necessarily tangible rewards, the ones where you see a child who came to you in August one way is walking out the door in May a completely different child because you had something to invest in that child. You had something that you could give to that child that would make that child a better person.
So that was when you knew, okay, I need that. I need to be part of that process to educate us to drawing out the possibility I see in young people, and teaching allowed you to do that.
It did. It becomes almost, this is a terrible analogy, but it becomes almost like a drug. It's like you get a little taste of what could be, and you want more of that.
So I need to take a break here coming up in just a second, but then, so I would imagine that there are two God-appointed people that help you check that box. I may be wrong, and we'll find out when we come back from this break. Person one is, you had to have had a powerful relationship with somebody who did that for you, and you had to have met a student for whom you were that, and that's, am I right about that?
You're right about that.
Okay,
yes.
all right. So why don't we take a break here? When we come back, I wanna figure out the bookends to what moves a teacher from being in a career, the teaching career, to the calling, and then I want to talk about the passion that you have for other teachers. And we got to find out
That
where
sounds
you
great.
grew up and all that other good stuff.
Can't
Amy
wait.
Crawford is my guest. She is God created her to be a teacher. Yeah, that's the way I'll say that, and we'll hear more in just a moment.
Possibility powered by Pilot Flying J, Covenant Health, Home Federal, and the Knoxville News Sentinel. Coming up.
If Andrew sits at my class, how many Andrews sit in other classes in every school, in every city, all across this country? And there's too much potential there to not see it, to not notice it and tap into it.
Welcome back to Anything is Possible. My guest is Amy Crawford as we celebrate a decade of possibility. So you were called to be a teacher, and I want to know about your bookends. The teacher that drew that out of you and the student that affirmed your calling. So introduce me to those people.
Well, the teacher that drew it out of me was my grandfather. I didn't have him as a student, but he was a teacher from the time I was born. My grandfather introduced me to poetry, stories, the power of words. Oh gosh, I don't want you to make me cry. My grandfather, at a time in my life when I really needed somebody to believe in me, for somebody to tell me that I mattered, that I was special, that there was something unique in me. He was the one who came beside me and made me feel like, and he probably did the same thing for my two sisters, but for me, he made me feel like I was the special one. And I can remember going to his house at night and sitting on the porch swing or curling up next to him in his big old green recliner. And he would read to me from this book the book was called The Best Loved Poems of the American People. And I can still remember the sound that the binding of the book would make as he would turn the pages and read and take me into these other worlds. So when I look back as a teacher and I think who modeled that for me, it was my grandfather.
So you didn't say that he taught you how to read.
No.
It was the quality of his faith in you that made you feel special. And that's what teachers do. Because the information, how do you get the information to go in, right? And when kids feel affirmed and special, you can be tough, you can love them, but the information goes in and it transforms their life. Is that what it was?
Yes, that's what it was. You know, and because my grandfather did it for me, I want to do it for other kids. He taught me that I am fearfully and wonderfully made and that my life has purpose and meaning. And I knew that he believed that, and because he believed it first, I believed it in myself.
Wow.
So
Faith on credit.
I agree, yeah.
So now the student, so you have the transformative experience with your grandfather, right?
Mm-hmm.
Believing in you so that you could believe in you, right? But then tell me about a student. That student. That student's name is Andrew. And I had Andrew in my class as an 8th grader. And Andrew honestly rocked my world. He came into my classroom every day. In 8th grade, kids, they don't want to be singled out, but they do. They don't want to be touched, but they do. They don't want attention drawn to them, but they do. And Andrew would come into my classroom every day, and he would sit in the back row, and he would slump down in his chair and hang his head and try to be invisible, try to disappear. And I started to just really have some concerns about Andrew because I don't know if it was the prompting of the Holy Spirit or what, but I felt like there was some untapped potential in this kid who would come in my class and just sit there. He was failing every class. I talked with his other teachers. He was doing the same thing in their classes as he was doing in mine. And one day, Andrew
wrote a poem in my class. I had given the kids, is that,
No,
is
it's
that
fine.
okay?
Yeah,
The thunder's okay? Okay.
Thunder is okay.
I had given the kids just a start of each line of the poem. I am, I dream, I wish, I hope, I fear. And Andrew put pencil to paper and crafted this masterful poem that gave me insight into who he was as a person. I clearly remember one of the lines of his poem was, I feel like I'm the cheese and the world is the mouse. And for me, reading that as a teacher of an 8th grader, I thought, this kid's an artist. This kid can paint a picture with words that describe exactly what he's experiencing. He felt like everybody was just taking pieces of him away. Andrew was, slightly overweight, glasses, insecure. All middle school students are insecure.
Right.
He was no different. Didn't feel like he had friends. It wasn't that he was a victim of bullying so much as it was the apathy. People didn't see him.
Right.
Teachers didn't see him. His peers didn't see him. But when he wrote those words, I saw him. I feel like God gave me a glimpse into the potential in this kid. And after that, actually, when I read his poem, that was the catalyst that helped start Reach Them to Teach Them. So, I thought, if Andrew sits in my class, how many Andrews sit in other classes in every school, in every city, all across this country? And there's too much potential there to not see it, to not notice it and tap into it. So for me, Andrew changed my world.
Now, so your grandfather, what's his name?
Eb King.
Eb King, holds you up close, unlocks your world through poetry.
Yep.
You run into Andrew.
You're connecting the dots, aren't you?
Yeah. And you start to unlock his world by drawing him up close. Poetry. But what's happening in both stories is a transfer of faith.
Mm-hmm.
He's believing in you through the vehicle of education,
Right.
which fuels you up, fills you up. But you're believing in Andrew through the vehicle of, so it's really unfolding possibility.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow. We need to take a break. See, she didn't want to talk about herself. I get that. And I know we got thunder and rain, and I love all of it. And this is real television, so keep it all in. Do not edit this out, because maybe God's trying to join the conversation. We'll take a break. You're watching Anything Is Possible. My guest is Amy Crawford. We'll be right back.
Coming up.
The biggest lesson I learned is kids are kids.
Wow.
Kids are kids. They want the same thing. They want to be accepted, they want to be loved, and they want to be challenged.
This is Anything Is Possible, and as we are taping this week's show, it's raining outside. You'll hear some thunder, but I actually like it. And as we were doing the interview and we're listening to the rainfall, and I'm thinking about pushing through the storms, right? And you were telling us the story of Andrew. You're watching this storm coming into your class every day, and you're going to push him till the clear comes. And that's a neat thing. So now tell me about yourself. Where'd you grow up? How many brothers and sisters?
I grew up right here in Knoxville. I have no exciting tales of travels around the world. I was born at Fort Sanders Hospital. I'm a product of Knox County schools. My kids, I have 4 kids, Chelsea, Drew, Sam, and Addie, and they're also products or soon to be products of Knox County schools. My mom and dad live 4 houses up the street from me. I have 2 sisters, Katie and Lori, and their families. We live within a 5-mile radius.
Wow.
So, yeah, we're really close. My family is amazing. My husband Tom is a realtor with Coldwell Banker, and we've been married 25 years.
Wow.
So
Congratulations.
anything is possible.
Anything is possible. So let me ask you this then. You were Knox County Teacher of the Year, I believe, were you not?
Yes.
All right. And you were looking for inspiration. You realized that this is what I observed with my mother. I think what made my mother such an impactful teacher was the amount of her heart that was invested in teaching, mm-hmm. and how much of herself was vested in her students, right? There was an emotional connection. There was an emotional connected quality to her work. And what that does to people who vest emotionally, it's one of the most draining things you could ever imagine, because you're trying to hold serve on your own faith while trying to power the faith in a child that they don't have yet. Does that, is what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Am I preaching good yet?
You are. Amen, brother.
Right.
Yeah.
So I know that you see that in other teachers, and that really did kind of leads you to go, if I'm feeling this way, there are a bunch of Andrews out there that need great teachers, but then there are a bunch of teachers out there that need to know, man, we really appreciate who you are, what you do, what you invest in these students, which led you to create Reach Them to Teach Them. What's that?
Well, Reach Them to Teach Them is an organization that, I believe it's a God-ordained vision. I believe that God just planted a seed in my heart and the hearts of several people on our team to come together. And we really have three main purposes. We want to appreciate, we want to inspire, and we want to challenge teachers. Because you talked about, the drain, the emotional investment, and how much you give to your students, how much of yourself you pour into your students. And every teacher who's a mother or a father, I think, struggles with that, because you end up giving more to other people's kids than you give to your own kids. And that's tough to go home at night and tell your kids wait, while you're working on things for other people's kids. But the reward comes, and I'm at that place right now with my oldest daughter, Chelsea, because she's grown up with me struggling through this 20-year career as a teacher, and now she says, Mom, I want to be a teacher.
Wow.
Because I see the kind of difference that you can make with your life.
Kind of like what you saw in Eb King. And so I have a couple of things that I want to make sure that I get to before you leave today. We had a previous conversation where you told me about being moved from one school to another school, and that shift really taking you to another level as a teacher. Talk to me for 30 seconds about that.
I did. I had an opportunity to leave my comfort zone, to leave West Valley Middle School, my neighborhood school where my kids, my personal kids attend, and go into the inner city. And having grown up in Knoxville, I attended school. I had gone to Cedar Bluff, Farragut High School, and then I went on to Carson Newman College, but I'd never really been aware of the schools in other parts of our community and the differences and discrepancies between the schools. So when I went to Sarah Moore Green 2 years ago, I went in very naive. I want to make a difference. I want to change the world. And I want to learn. And I did. I had a lot of lessons to learn. The biggest lesson I learned is kids are kids.
Wow.
Kids are kids. They want the same thing. They want to be accepted, they want to be loved, and they want to be challenged.
Once again, we're back to what teachers really do is open kids to the possibility of who they are and who they can be. So before you get away, here's what I'd love for you to do. Your daughter wants to be a teacher.
She does.
So you sit down with your daughter, you're talking to her about teaching and possibility. What do you tell her? What have you learned? What do you want to give her on her journey?
I want her to love well. I want her to love kids well. I want her to never give up, because those kids that you're so tempted to give up on because they're so frustrating, and there's no denying it. The toughest ones, the ones that are the hardest to love, are the ones who need it the most. And I don't want her to give up on a single one, and she won't. I know she won't. She's seen what can happen when you don't give up. Do I have time to share one quick story?
Sure you do.
I had a little boy in the inner city at Sarah Moore Green, and he had gotten taken from his home and put into foster care, temporary foster care. And this little boy would go home every weekend with a backpack full of food because they didn't know if he was going to get fed during the weekend because he wasn't at school. He was dirty, smelly, his clothes didn't fit right. And he knew it. He was aware. One day we had some UT football players come to our school. And one of the UT football players taught me a lesson that I'll never forget. He was wearing a black t-shirt with a big orange power T on it. And the kids were outside and they were getting ready for field day, and they were passing Sharpies around, signing each other's field day shirts. And this little boy walked up to this football player. I want to say his name too. His name was Nick Revais. He walked up to Nick and he said, "Mr. Nick." Nick looked at him. He said, "What you need, buddy? You want me to sign your shirt?" My student looked up at him and he said, "No, sir. I want to sign yours." And Nick looked down at his t-shirt with that big orange power T. And he took that Sharpie and put it into his hand, and he said, "You sign it right here." And I've got a picture of that orange power T with that little boy's name scrawled across the front of it. I wish, Nick and the other players, they left that day. But I wish he could have seen the change that happened in my student, because he got validated. He was somebody now because he had it in black and white, or black and orange, I guess I should say, right across the t-shirt of a UT football player, somebody that he respected and admired.
That's amazing. Let me say this. You said that when your grandfather held you close, you were at that point where you needed the affirmation and validation of somebody who would believe in you and the possibility of you. Yeah. And then you see it come full circle. Wow. Man, it's been great to have you.
It's been great, Howard. Thank you so much.
You are one of those teachers that is proving through Reach Them to Teach Them and your work in the classroom that anything is possible. On your screen, you'll see a website where you can reach out to her and help their organization Reach Them to Teach Them. Amy, thanks for being on the broadcast.
Thank you, Howard. Loved it.